action because Chen Lemmers has gone past in the Volvo estate. Fantastic. We're with Chen Lemmers now, fourth position.
Track action has gone cold at Grid Life Circuit Legends, but we have this awesome Volvo wagon here. Jacob is the brainchild behind this project, and he actually works at FCP Euro. This thing is so cool. These have kind of a special place in my heart because I did drive a 740 GLE. It was a hand-me-down car.
That's how a lot of Volvos are.
Yeah, I've always, enjoyed the shape. It's just a square, right? The joke is that if a kid drew a car, it would be like this.
It would be a Volvo wagon.
Yeah, it would be a Volvo wagon. What's the story behind this?
So this car started out as like a COVID purchase. It was an $850 Volvo 850 wagon. So
$850 for an 850?
$850 for an 850. The guy wanted 900, and I told him, well, it's a Volvo 850, not a Volvo 900. If it was a 900, I'd give you 900, but it's an 850. So I bought that, and I had, whether you were around to witness them in action or if you were born too late to see them, in 1994, Volvo raced 850 wagons in British touring car.
Yeah, famously, there's the pictures of this just on two wheels, exactly. Curb hopping.
Curb hopping, yeah.
And these are actually front-wheel drive.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
It's weird because I would have thought that they would be rear-wheel drive just from looking at it. But I know that this is front-wheel drive. It's such a big vehicle for it to be front-wheel drive.
Yeah, so this was Volvo's really their first front-wheel drive, like when they first transitioned from rear-wheel drive to front-wheel drive. And there's a couple of interesting things about that when they did that. Where, for example, the rear suspension in this car, it's got a Delta Link rear suspension, which actually has passive rear steer. They wanted the car to handle really well, despite being a front-wheel drive car. They wanted it to have really good, sharp turn-in, but also they wanted to have stability. So it's kind of like a combination of like a semi-trailing arm independent suspension and a beam axle. So it's a semi-independent, and it basically has Delta Link ends that deflect when you.
There's no mechanism like a mechanical thing like on a GTR. It's not like Hikus or anything.
Nothing like Hikus. It's a totally passive system. So it uses basically bushing deflection to change the toe. So it's very simple. And when they wear out, the car does weird stuff. But when you replace them and refresh the suspension with it functioning properly, it actually handles incredibly well. So this car, the goal when building this car, that picture of that BTCC 850 up on two wheels, that was like the guiding light of building this car. And it's not a replica build, we call it an inspiration build. So the BTCC car was a naturally aspirated 5-cylinder. Two things made it unique. It was a wagon, which was the most obviously unique thing on a racetrack. But the second thing was, in a sea of, 4 cylinders and 6 cylinders, you had this burbly 5-cylinder engine. The distinctive noise that makes really stuck out to people. So with this car, we really sort of stayed true to, the spirit of the BTCC car. This has a naturally aspirated 5-cylinder with individual throttle bodies.
Wow. That is so cool. So then 5-cylinder, how many liters is this?
So this is a 2.4 liter.
And so what is this out of?
So the 850 originally came with either a 2.3 liter turbo or a 2.4 liter NA. This is not the original engine from the car. This car has like 350,000 miles on it. And the original engine ran fine, but Volvo made a lot of updates later on. So this is like the second generation of that engine. So this is a little bit more of a modern, but still a 2.4 liter 5-cylinder. It has variable valve timing, and there's some updates as far as like there's a integrated oil cooler and water to oil cooler in the oil pan. There's solid lifters. They basically revised the engine. They call it the RN, which is the revised version of the original engine.
So how come you didn't put the turbo engine in this?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. So for one thing, it's sort of a recipe that's been done before. I've had to turbo, Volvos. I still do. And you would definitely, like, if you're building a track car and you want to make power easily and you want to go fast, that's the way to go for sure. But building a real like BTCC tribute car, I felt that staying NA was the way to go. And it doesn't make as much power. Volvo had to do a lot of work. They had to do a lot of work, the racing team, to make that engine make power. There's like a whole story about how they had to like sort of, the rule book, they had to skirt around the rule book to make power out of those engines. So this car makes right around 200 horsepower at the crank. So it's nothing crazy, but the sound and the feel of an NA car, it really evokes the emotion and the spirit of that car. It sounds the part. And it revs to 8,000 RPM, and it's a screamer. So,
why do the headers look like that?
Yeah, so the headers sort of had a little fun with them. So my friend Josh from 88 Fab, he's a small exhaust fabricator. He does mainly Volvo exhaust systems. Does a lot of downpipes and catbacks. And he built the exhaust header. And I basically said to him, I just want the craziest exhaust header you can build. So we did like a high-rise, long tube, 5-to-1, proper 36-inch long primary tubes, just a crazy exhaust header, equal length, just to really get the sound that we wanted out of it. I've noticed when I have the hood pop, kids will come by and their parents will show them. It's a perfect visual representation of how an engine works, because you see where the air enters the engine for each cylinder with individual throttle bodies, and then the prominent exhaust headers, you obviously see where it exits. So it's kind of there's a lot of things to look at here. And
and then this is exposed, the timing stuff. Yeah. I'm actually surprised that BC makes anything for this car.
That's the thing with Volvos. As far as aftermarket, there's not a ton of options. A lot of the stuff you have to, it's either small companies that make stuff, or you make stuff yourself and figure it out. For example, the throttle bodies, these are actually off of an E60 M5 from the S85 V10. So I thought 5 cylinders, half of a V10, one bank of those throttle bodies would be perfect for this. The manifold to adapt the BMW throttle bodies to the Volvo cylinder head was custom. It's actually a metal 3D printed manifold.
Oh, this is?
Yeah, the manifold itself, this is metal 3D printed, and the velocity stacks are also metal 3D printed. These were just put in a tumbler to polish it.
That's so cool. So this is a BMW part?
Yeah, the only thing that's a factory part is the BMW part, is the throttle bodies.
Okay, all these.
Exactly.
So then how do you control those?
So to control them, obviously you can't use the factory ECU. So this has a Megasquirt MS3 Pro. You run Alpha N usually to tune throttle bodies like this. It's a little tricky to tune, but on the track you're wide open throttle most of the time, especially with this power level.
That is so cool. All this says BMW.
Yeah, so it's BMW throttle bodies, and then the factory BMW fuel injectors, which if you open up the throttle body, you can see, I don't know if you can see, the injectors actually stick right through the throttle body, and they're right in line with the air. So it really atomizes the air and fuel mixture very well. And then obviously the BMW throttle bodies were originally controlled by an actuator, but we just have a cable throttle because that's what this car had. So there's just a very simple cable throttle actuator.
Does that help with throttle response?
You know what? The throttle response is almost like too aggressive the way that's set up. In the future, it would probably, it'd be cool to do a throttle body actuator, but the throttle response, it's very touchy.
That is so neat. So why is it that the sedan version of this wasn't as popular?
There's like an urban legend as to why in 1994, they only raced the Wagon in 1994, just for that 1 year. The urban legend is that when they were developing the racing program, they actually just didn't have any sedan body shells available, so they used the Wagon. A lot of people believe it was more of a marketing push where Volvo had this image of being a safe family car, and they sort of wanted to appeal to younger demographic or show that they have cool, fun, and fast cars. So for 1994, they campaigned the Wagon, and it didn't win, but it looked really good out there, and it really stuck in people's minds. But
yeah, and I feel like it made a lot of fans pretty happy. I mean, they built a fan base because people just wanted to see, oh, look, it's a station wagon racing.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like the most, and they built the Volvo 850Rs from that and actually sold cars because of it.
Yeah.
So, but then in 1995 and 1996, I think British Touring Car allowed more aero, so they switched to the sedan, and that's when the cars got, pretty competitive at that point.
So if you started with the 850R, then it wouldn't be like a tribute car then?
I mean, yeah, a lot of people ask, oh, is this an 850R? And I say, no, it's just a base model 850. I mean, if you're staying NA, there were two things why I got this car. I wanted a wagon. This car is a factory 5-speed. In the US, you can only get a 5-speed with a non-turbo. If all 850Rs in the US were automatic. And then the main thing was a non-sunroof. So slick top, yeah.
It's crazy how big this piece of metal is.
It's a lot of real estate, huh?
And so then, is this a lot heavier than the sedan? It's gotta be.
Not really. It's really not a whole lot heavier. There's obviously more glass and you have the tailgate, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking maybe 50 to 100, 120 pounds max, and that's at the rear of the car, which helps with balance on a front wheel drive car. And then there's a ton of metal on this car. Like, because Volvo builds a very safe car, the side effect of that is it's a very rigid and strong car. So you actually have a very rigid chassis, and then obviously we have a roll bar that we built, in-house to take that further.
It's so funny to me that the roll cage or the roll bar is so far in.
There's like so much more car past it.
You have so much more car before you even touch the roll bar.
Like this car, again, being a tribute build, like to build a true replica, the BTCC cars, the driver's seat was basically in the back. The engine was pushed up front. The whole car was tubbed, which is how they sat so low to the ground. Wheels made in England. They really just had that proper BTCC era look to them. Volvo has a 5x108 bolt pattern, which is sort of a unique bolt pattern, which kind of makes wheel options difficult. But I think they look proper, and it's a track car. They're a little scuffed up, they're a little rough, but I think it looks right on there.
The brakes are huge too.
Yeah, so those are StopTech ST40 calipers, and then the rotor. So basically, that kit originally came with a floating 2-piece rotor, but the Volvo S60R has the same diameter rotor as that. And at FCP Euro, we have tons of those on the shelf. So, again, on a track car, having something that you can just cheaply, frequently replace, without spending an arm and a leg made sense there. And then the tires are our Falcon RT660s, which are...
This has gotta be just so much fun to drive on track.
It's a blast. You're just, around Lime Rock, you're basically wide open almost the whole time.
I love that.
And the sound bouncing off the walls and echoing throughout the valley, it's just like the whole experience.
Let's talk about the interior. Can you open that door? What transmission are you running in this?
So this is the original M56 5-speed transmission that this car came with. This was an original 5-speed car, and it has 300,000 miles on it. And all we did to it was we put a Quaife limited slip differential in it. The gearing on this transmission is really better suited for highway driving and fuel economy. So the gears are really tall. So like when you wind this thing out to 8,000 RPMs, it feels like forever, and it's fun. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really help performance. So in the future, I'd put a shorter final drive in. Volvo had a bunch of different final drives in the later cars. You can mix match a lot of parts with Volvos. Even swap it to a 6-speed transmission. But for now, it works. We have Sparco steering wheel, a nice small steering wheel. The factory wheel is really big. And these 90s cars, the steering rack's pretty slow, right? So having a smaller steering wheel really kind of made it feel, the steering feel a lot quicker.
The original wheel, I'm sure, was huge.
Oh, it was huge. It was like a school bus wheel. And then you have the Sparco seats. I remember, so like when we were building this car, we have a whole YouTube series on building this car. We took a very step-by-step approach where we actually used the FCP Euro Proving Grounds, which is the infield track at Lime Rock Park, to like develop this car. And we would go back after making a change. And actually, aside from tires and suspension work, one of the biggest changes to this car in terms of feel was literally the seats and the steering wheel. Because we'd taken this car on the track on this comfortable, cushy cloth seats that this car had. It was like I bruised the whole left side of my leg just from bracing myself around against the door panel. This driver comfort is huge. This was a big difference.
This is so cool. I love this car. Thank you so much for bringing it. Can you just start it?
Yeah.
So I can kind of just see this.
Yeah, we can give it a couple of revs.
That is so cool. I love that. Wait, so you 3D printed this too?
Yeah, so this was 3D printed. So this is like the air box. It seals against the hood. and then it pulls air through the grill.
So cool. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to support us directly, go to larrychenprints.com. I print and sign every single one of these. This is the perfect gift, or it's the perfect piece of art for your wall.